So I would like to now introduce our distinguished panel guests. Please welcome Lars Brandl, who's today's moderator. So not only is he our brand new head of content at the Bragg Media, but Lars is one of Australia's leading music industry writers. He's going to be hating this, but let me go. He's an agenda-setting and award-winning journalist who is a regular speaker at conferences at home and abroad, on television, radio, and as a pundit for online and traditional news channels. Welcome, Lars. Next we have, come on up, Lars, come on. Next we have Evelyn Richardson, the CEO of Live Performance Australia. Welcome, Evelyn. And please also welcome Michael Christidis, a co-founder of Untitled Group, the incredible team behind Beyond the Valley, Pitch Music and Arts, and Grapevine Gathering, and a bunch of others. Welcome, Michael. And also joining us today is Linda Scott. She is Commercial Director APAC at Eventbrite. And finally, we have Dr. Kristen Cornell, Research Fellow and Manager, Research Partnerships at Creative Australia. Welcome. Thanks.
That was amazing. Thanks, Pops. If it was true. Sniffer dogs, heavy-handed cops, bushfires, floods, cost blowouts, and the dreaded C word, COVID. It sounds like the treatment for an old-school disaster film, doesn't it? And it could be. It's also a set of the factors facing festival land right now and everyone working in that ecosystem. As everyone in this room knows, earlier this year we saw a string of really important brands either collapse or take a break, including the granddaddy of them all, Splendour in the Grass. So we're up here today to explore, find out what's going on, what's going wrong, what's going right, and what the future is for festival land. And we only have half an hour on which to do this, so I'm just going to jump in with 2 feet. I think as a news hound, and I've been doing news for many years, I have to jump straight to Evelyn because we got some news the other day that after roughly 18 years as CEO of Live Performance Australia, you will be leaving that position at the end of the year. And I am very curious, Evelyn, what your thoughts will be on where we are in this industry right now when you do leave.
Is that your question?
Yeah. Jump in.
Well, I mean, I guess it's interesting when you look back. When I look back over the last 18 years, obviously I work across the music sector, but also all forms of live entertainment, so theatre and everything else. And I think what I would say is there've been massive changes during that time, and I think the arts and entertainment industry is now moving through a massive transition and period of change with major disruption and I think everybody's familiar with the challenges for music and music festivals in particular. I think what I would say is I think the death of music festivals is highly over-egged. I don't think that's happening, but I think certainly the space is under significant pressure, and I think some of the trends that we're seeing aren't unique to music. So I think all of those cost pressures, changing audience preferences, generational change, consumer buying behaviour, all of those things that are impacting on what's being presented and how audiences are responding are not unique to music festivals, but I think there are some specific things that are. I mean, I think in terms of sustainability and that existential crisis that climate change and the challenges to outdoor events is going to be fairly significant, I think. But I would also say that if you look at what's happening, there's a lot of upside too. So not all festivals are falling over. I think clearly audiences are changing, and I think probably the biggest challenge for arts and entertainment right now is that what do we really know about audiences? How are they changing? There's a lot of discussion around the new emerging experience economy. What does that look like? And so I think those are the kinds of areas that I think everybody's focusing with. It's an industry that's having to adapt to quite significant challenges in real time, and I think that's really hard. But I think if you're a student of history and you look at the industry is also, full of entrepreneurs and creative risk takers. So I think I'd be pretty confident that while I would say that the music festivals in general, I think we're definitely in a downward cycle, and I think that we'll move through this transition, but it'll be probably a 5-year transition. But I'd be very, optimistic that new types of festivals and new business models will emerge through that. But I think there'll be still quite a few casualties along the way, I think, as we go. But I think we will see, and we're already starting to see, new ideas and new kinds of, genre-specific or different forms of festivals and music and entertainment sort of emerging.
Yeah, you did say the story of the death of festivals has been greatly exaggerated, and we do have a panellist here, Michael, who oversees festivals which are putting up banner numbers, best ever numbers. So we'll go back into it. It would be curious for a punter or an outsider looking at this industry and seeing tickets for Taylor Swift flying, and seeing tickets for Pink flying, and an arena tour, a pop-up arena tour flying for Fred again. So people still love music. People still love seeing live music. Michael, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the big success stories you've had with Untitled Group. Big picture question, how tough is it to sell a ticket right now to a festival?
I think, to a festival specifically, I think it's about... Okay, it's tough to sell a ticket to a festival for two main reasons. As you said, the adapting market at the moment, but we touched a lot on customer profiles and knowing your customer, knowing your audience. To have a festival directly aligned with a core audience is probably the most important thing, to get that big volume of people that go, I align with this festival and event and I'm going to that no matter what. Because it's expensive. I think that it's hard to sell tickets to a festival at the moment because obviously everyone's across the cost of living crisis and cost of everything going up. But when we're talking 20-30%, and we're dealing with tickets at the $500-$600, particularly for a multi-day festival at that $400 or $500 mark, we can't afford to pass that 20-30% increase onto our consumer because they can no longer afford. There's simply a price ceiling. So where are we fixing up that margin gap? So selling tickets to a festival is difficult. However, if you have a core audience that you're aligned with and you're putting up a strong product, I think people will find the money for that. And that's what we're seeing across headline touring. It doesn't matter, if how low the bank account is when Taylor Swift's in town, you do that. And we see that across a lot of things. You see that in culture where people, I think there was a study that, if Nike is dropping a limited 1,000 shoe drop, they'll buy that pair of shoes ahead of paying their rent because it's that affinity with that. So I think really having that affinity with that core audience, knowing who that core audience is, and that's why we see a lot of talk about the death of multi-genre festivals, because it's harder to have a core audience that is spread across so many things. So a lot more tailored into genre specific, or just, I guess, a core demographic that is tailored. I think it's harder to get, but it's possible.
And the issue with the downturn in festivals is not just an Australian problem. Coachella, I believe, was down 20% this year. And then you have this weird situation where a Glastonbury festival, which it sells out a year in advance before the bill is even announced. And Glastonbury, of all the festivals, gets smashed by bad weather. I've been to 2 Glastonburys. It was a mud fest. So it's a very complicated picture, the festival land. Kristen, you've done some incredible research, very, very readable research into music festivals in Australia. What are some of your takeaways?
Okay, key takeaways. So we did this research on music festivals. It's called Soundcheck, came out in April. And one kind of major contribution of that research was that it mapped music festivals around the country. So that kind of provides a real benchmark for understanding the scope and the scale of this sector. And 535 music festivals fit our eligibility criteria, which is quite strict, actually. So we had no idea that there were so many music festivals. By mapping so many, we saw the diversity of music festivals. So we have big commercial events, we have events run by local governments, we have touring festivals, we have unticketed. And then I guess one of the key findings, no surprise to anyone here, was that operational costs were the biggest barriers for festival organisers, but also 2 key interesting findings that are now sort of the grounds for further research we're doing this year. One is that key consumer group buying tickets used to be people 18 to 24. It's aged to 25 to 29. So lots of questions about what is behind that. And another one, again, no surprises, perhaps to festival organisers, the ticket buying behaviours have changed so that people are buying later. We see this across the arts sector more generally. So we do another big piece of research called the Audience Outlook Monitor, which is looking at the performing arts since COVID and coming out of COVID, and there is this pattern of people buying later and later, which puts a lot of risk back onto the festival organisers when they're holding so much risk already. Increasing insurance costs also came through in the research.
We will talk about booze. It was in my opening stanza. We'll come back to that because I think the festivals market has traditionally been tethered to alcohol, and Gen Z doesn't really like it so much. We see many stories about beer companies going bust and vineyards pulling their grapes out. We'll come to that. Linda, as a ticketer, you have some of your own insights into the business. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we also run an annual trends report. So this year's trends report for 2024 mirrors and echoes exactly your findings, and people are buying tickets later, up to 2 to 4 weeks before an event, and that's at a holistic level. When it comes to the festival, though, the on sale date and that first push of buying tickets is so important for both us and the event creator. And what we're increasingly getting more and more into as a ticketing company is also being a marketing partner as well, to help the event creator not only understand their audience but prove that we can connect with the audience and beyond, and getting new audiences and eyeballs onto that particular event. So, that's so important for both parties to have those synergies in understanding audience. And we really spotlighted the 21 to 35-year-olds this year. That's our core audience, and they what they really sort of said in terms of what's going to get their share of wallet and make them choose one over the other is it's all about experience, new experience, more of a VIP experience. Like, what is different from this festival versus this one that's going to, allow me to spend my $400 or $500 to go to that. So it's having that understanding of the individuals, and I guess shifting and moulding your offering in terms of what they're after will secure their purchase early. But then what we're also seeing is there's a big dip, and then people will then buy close to the event as well, whether it's a music festival or whether it's a club night, whatever. But there's a big push at the start, and then we sort of see a few sort of weeks and months where it's, trickling through, and then big push at the end as well. So,
on the presentation of the Soundcheck report, Millie Milgate did mention towards the end that one of the solutions to this issue is to buy tickets and buy them quickly. The problem that you just mentioned, Linda, of the late ticket buying, it's also regional, right? There are certain towns which are later than others, and Michael, you run events in Western Australia. Many events organisers have decided to turn away from making that jump. But you do, and you've had success with it. What are your thoughts?
I might just touch on just quickly, because you mentioned ticketing companies becoming marketers, and I think the connection between promoters and ticketing companies is more important than ever, because what you're trying to get when you put your events on sale, that lead up, it is so important. But you're trying to get the frenzy that doesn't give a false sense of security, because as soon as a customer has a false sense of security that the event isn't going to sell out, then they go, I've got time, I'll get it on a resale platform, and that's what's causing that late buying period. But if it's an event that people know we're going to sell out, then everyone's fighting. And I think with how connected the audiences are now with TikTok and everything, you've got people, instant theories, going live, going, is this event to sell out? Oh, it's on to third release, quick. And they're communicating. It's something that we haven't seen before, where we're dealing with ticketing companies that are going, you've got 10,000 people on the page and everyone's waiting and watching to see if it's going to sell out. So we haven't had that before. So I'll just make a note on, working with ticketing partners as marketing partners is very important right now. In regards to Perth and particularly Western Australia, these are more, with the cost of travel and everything going up. I think those markets are more important than ever as well. They had a very rough period during COVID. A lot of events were cancelled, and when you look at these tours and things that go up, you're sick of the commentary online that says, "Oh, can't wait for it to be cancelled," or they'll skip here. So I think those audiences need a bit more confidence reinstilled into the market, which isn't helping with a lot more bands and artists not choosing to go there. So we make a conscious effort to try and go there with our festivals and events when we can. But yeah, I think those markets need a bit more confidence built back into them, because it's not cheap and it's not easy, obviously, now getting all the way across there.
I think we identified 8 separate factors backstage. So now the jaded Western Australian ticket buyer is the 9th. Let's drill a little bit into the success stories, Michael, that you've had. 500,000 plus tickets sold during the last summer season. Biggest numbers yet for Beyond the Valley. There's this theory that runs quite deep across Australia that the recycling of lineups is killing the buzz of festivals, and yet Dom Dollar has played, I believe, at the last 7 Beyond the Valleys.
That's correct.
So I'm not sure how maybe that's the Glastonbury effect, being able to sell that a year in advance. But is there a special sauce? What's the super ingredient there that makes it work?
I think, once again, going back to the core audience, Beyond the Valley has got a very targeted, you look at some of our punters and some of them will come up to me and go, "Oh, Mike," have 6 wristbands on from the years, Brian and I go take a shower. But, it's developing that culture with an audience that has an affinity with the event. Glastonbury, it doesn't matter to a lot of people to the lineup. It's a rite of passage. If the weather was bad, it's a rite of passage. And those events are rare. And, you said it's been a great summer for us. Electronic music has really persevered. Coming out of COVID, I think it's been the biggest industry that's, the IQ Mag report that just published came out, I think it's doubled since 2019 to 2023. So everybody is obviously looking at electronic now. We've been very deeply rooted in that community for the last decade. And Beyond the Valley hosts a whole variety of genres. However, we really lean into that audience. And same with Wildlands. And you look at a festival like Listen Out, fantastic festival, doing amazing sales across the country. But they took a conscious pivot, which it used to be obviously Parklife, and being a total multi-genre bill. So I think it's really leaning into adapting with the culture. And where I'm seeing at the moment with these trends and changes within music taste and how people are adapting with music is no different to 10 years ago when we had, Stereosonic Future Music Festival, Big Day Out, Soundwave, the list goes on. And there was a collapse of all these festivals. Yet the festivals like Meredith and festivals that know their core audience and have stuck, to their ways are still around. So I think, touching on the points that we had before, it was there is going to be some casualties and there's going to be a lot of, and don't get me wrong, it's not all glory days on our end. We had a lot of brands that didn't get there on the ticket sales and lost a lot of money. But I think for us, it's about going, what's working? Let's double down on that. Let's know our audience and let's double down on delivering what they want to at the same time without cannibalizing, because there's only so much you can, get someone to buy tickets to across the season, given that cost of living's gone up so much.
Kristen, your research also found that electronic music festivals were very popular, and I believe country is cool again.
Yeah, that's true. It was almost a quarter of the music festivals mapped across the country were electronic events, and most of those were one-day events. You saw this kind of pattern between genre and the number of days, and folk festivals were more likely to be multi-day events. And yes, country doing well. It appears this wasn't necessarily identified in our research, but the single genre events seem to be doing better than the multi-genre events, which I guess raises questions and concerns around the kind of offering of what a music festival might bring in the diversity and kind of unexpected encounter if you have multiple different kinds of bands playing over a number of days. And yeah, if the successful events are kind of zeroed in on one genre and one particular audience, I guess, yeah, it's a different proposition from what a multi-day music festival might otherwise offer.
And you have done some research on the issue of discoverability of Australian artists. Can we talk a little bit about that? I mean, certainly it became a very important story in my world with the ARIA charts, the publication of the year-end ARIA charts, which had 3 or 4 Australian artists in the top 100. I think the best-selling album for an Australian artist was In Excess Greatest Hits from 2011. So there's a sense that the Australian artists aren't getting a look in at the moment. How much is that affecting festivals world?
Yeah, AC/DC is scoring quite highly on the streaming charts at the moment. So this is research that we're just beginning, and it came out of the Soundcheck report. And looking at these changing conditions for music festivals, we recognised that there was something more fundamental at play, which was a question of how local audiences are developed for local musicians, and that kind of local production story. And so through that, we've started research on discoverability, how Australians are finding music. And this is, again, the question of streaming and algorithms, which I think Evelyn's introduction was just like a fantastic overview. And to that, I would add digital technology and new ways of finding music, and a shift from kind of terrestrial radio stations and curated radio stations to the curatorial effect of algorithms. And yeah, that alongside these changing kind of demographic shifts and younger people and how they particularly are understanding Australian music and whether or not they even know that they're listening to Australian music when they are. These are questions that we're pursuing in this research, which is running across the rest of this year, out in November.
Looking forward to reading it. Let me know when it's published.
Sorry, I'll just add to that, where I started with AC/DC, that's another issue, right? With algorithms, we not only have Australians competing with the rest of the world, we have Australian musicians competing with everything that's ever been made.
100 million songs. Yes, every recorded song that's uploaded to a streaming platform. Everyone has made an effort to get here at a very un-rock and roll hour. So if there are any pressing questions from the audience, get your hand up, ask it. We'll get a response. Are there any questions? I can't imagine the live music industry would be shy, maybe at this time of morning. But Poppy. The question was, what is Evelyn doing next? You have a few months left in the role.
That was not on your list, Lars. No, as I said to a few people, Poppy, I haven't left the room or the building yet, so I've got another 7 months, and then I'll take a break and travel and recharge and think and see what emerges. Come back to our
Journalists do ask journalist questions, we can't help ourselves. There was a mildly terrifying statement that came from the operators of the zoo in Brisbane, my hometown, recently. Very important grassroots level venue, 32 years running. Last year they posted the biggest ever number of tickets sold, and yet they couldn't make it work. They're closing down despite their best ever year, which says a lot about the audiences not being thirsty for the bar. We have a business model which appears to not be working, a business model that's tethered to alcohol. Thoughts? What do we do about that? Do we just need to reshape the model into one that doesn't reflect a thirsty audience? Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, that came out really strongly in our trends report as well. That the 21 to 35-year-olds, they're not drinking as much, if not at all. So they are looking for alcohol-free options, and the expectation is that the bar changes to suit the needs. So bringing in the mocktails, bringing in a whole heap of zero alcohol offerings is now certainly something that they expect, whether it be at a bar, whether it be at a music festival. The feedback was certainly strong.
So arguably we have a generation of punters who aren't all that interested in getting sloshed at a show. But there's also some evidence that there was a generation of punters who were locked in during that dreaded C word, and may not have enjoyed that rite of passage moment. So have we lost part of a generation due to that lockdown?
I think it's just changed the whole way they interact with a lot of things. I mean, this next generation is a lot more informed about a lot of topics. So there's obviously the health element that's coming through, but there's also the element of, you look at inflation, how much it's risen the price of everything. You know, beers at single day festivals are $14. So, you know, someone might enjoy one or two beers, and that's what we're seeing. You know, the average drinks that people are enjoying is two drinks roughly. Obviously, it might change depending on the genre. At a heavy metal or a country gig, it's a bit more. But at our electronic music festivals, we can no longer rely on, you know, the bar as that primary or secondary source of income. So we need to become more dynamic in where we're looking for our income sources. You know, what might have been seen as a primary source, secondary source of revenue might now need to be seen as the bonus if it comes through, because you can't rely on it anymore.
I would add to that. I think a couple of things. I think we need to stop looking back. We have to be looking forward. And I think the world has changed significantly, and young people have got different interests. They've got different objectives, and obviously we need to understand that. There is a slight COVID overlay, but that's only a very small period of time. So I think we really ought to be looking at the sort of strategic questions. We need to lift the conversation, I think, much higher, and be looking at, you know, what that point I made before about what do we actually understand about audiences, and whether they're young people or they're 35 or they're 65 or whatever, and in terms of what they're interested in, what sort of experiences they're looking for. And I think the other question. So I don't think we know a lot about audiences right now, and that's right across all of arts and entertainment, and that's global. That's not just unique to Australia. But I think the other question I think we need to be asking, or conversation, is if we're looking at artist careers, for example, which is sort of the whole focus of our national cultural policy, what does an artist's career look like moving forward? Because the kinds of channels and pathways for artists, whether it's pubs and clubs or music festivals or international festivals or whatever, that's all been severely disrupted. That's changed. So if we're looking out to 25, 35, what is, in terms of our industry, you know, what is that artist's career, what do those pathways look like now? We've been talking about streaming and disruption, 100 million songs, 130,000 new songs on Spotify every day, whatever that current stat is. I mean, so what does that mean now in terms of our business models, whether you're a music festival or a concert promoter or whoever, but particularly the artists are central to that. So what does that mean for them? And I think, you know, I've sort of probably got more questions than answers, but I think a lot of the commentary I see is very retrospective. It's very, oh my God, festivals are falling over. Oh my God, my local pub and club is closing. Now that's tragic, and we don't want to lose all of our infrastructure and all of our resources. But the reality is that the world has changed, and so not everybody's going to survive. Not all of those businesses are going to survive. So I think, for me, I'm sort of much more focused on what are these new business models that are emerging? Where do our audiences and our fans and our artists and all the parts of our industry fit into that? And I think that's a more relevant question to me.
I think that's the one to finish on. We'll get to that. At the very top, I did talk about. We've got a Peter Noble question. Peter, I'll just run. Do you want to ask it now? I think you're ready.
I spoke with you almost weekly, and you gave me updates, and you were always there, always on it, always attempting to find a better outcome for our industry. We're going to miss you, because you absolutely are a champion, and I thank you, really thank you, all you've contributed. Really. Enjoy your break. Come back.
We have another question over here with a mic.
Hi guys, this is Aparna from Tule Segment. Great panel. In the technology world, the buzzword is AI. You can't go to any conference, any panel without that being discussed. So I'd like to understand how AI is contributed, whether it's a hindrance or an enabler within the entertainment space. So yeah, I'd love to get some thoughts on that. Thank you.
All right. Who's taking this?
I'll do a quick sentence and I'll pass it on, because the thing I love about our industry is AI can do many things: paraphrase, sentence review, legal documents, etc. A lot of efficiencies, but you can't ask AI to watch a live performance and say, "Should I book that artist?" You can ask AI to go, "Oh, program me a lineup," etc. But there's an element of I guess the arts and culture industry that can't be replicated, and I think that's what makes me feel good about obviously AI. I like it's going to bring a lot of efficiencies, and I know there's a lot of things around creativity in terms of authenticity and around AI, but for me, there's a lot of the music and arts industry that can't be replicated, can't be automated, and I think that's what makes our industry, so strong and so full of such vibrant, great, talent. So for me, AI, I think it's going to be great for efficiencies, but I think there's a lot of elements that,
So the benefits are at the back end. Linda, do you have any thoughts? You work in technology.
Yeah, we use AI a lot, but more so from the event listing perspective. So, if you're using Eventbrite and you're writing, your event listing with all your details, AI is a consistent feature that we're constantly updating, because the more compelling the listing, the more that increases your SEO, and then when you've got sort of someone that's looking for your event, you're sort of getting more eyeballs in that Google search. So AI is always a topic of conversation internally with our engineers. You don't want to lose the human element though, because I think people will catch on to whether you're using something that's computer generated. There's still got to be the heart there in terms of what you're trying to portray. But yeah, it does. It builds efficiencies, but you really want to find that sweet spot of ensuring that it doesn't completely take over and remove that human element from it.
Just check the time. We're almost out. I can't believe it. It feels like 5 minutes. We've been given an extra minute or two. That's fantastic. So I do have to ask, and I said this at the top: the sniffer dogs and the heavy-handed cops is nothing quite like going to a music festival and having a German Shepherd jump on you.
We don't run any festivals here in New South Wales.
Only in New South Wales. Well, in Queensland you can't buy full-strength beer, but that's something else. How much? Certainly, it's a buzzkill, but how much do we see that actually putting downward pressure on sales of tickets? Do we actually is the involvement of legislation certainly and certainly the police, the policing of festivals, is that hurting event organisers?
I mean, I made a joke then, but we do not run any music festivals here in the state of New South Wales. And look, again, I think this isn't just an isolated thing. It's been a residual build-up over time. But there used to remember the iconic photos of particularly electronic music festivals that were targeted as being bad and evil, and there were more police than there were punters on the dance floor when the gates would open, and people would take those photos and it would go viral and would be a joke globally. Every state's got a different approach to how they approach policing, and there's a thing user pay police, so they'll deem how risky an event is and then basically give you the bill based on what you need to pay and how many resources they need to allocate to it. And New South Wales has in the past historically been the most heavy-handed in that response, and it's definitely deterred from what you're seeing, a thriving electronic music culture. New South Wales has got probably the smallest number of electronic music events and things that will come here. And Melbourne arguably is the inverse, where we're a bit more open and liberal and activating unique spaces and whatnot, and artists are selling record numbers in Melbourne. So I think New South Wales has got a bit of work to do, and to not scare away our younger audiences that didn't have that rite of passage. You don't want their first experience with a music festival being a police and a German Shepherd.
I get the sense that was a question that we could have expanded for another 20 minutes. But this is the last one, and I'll ask each of my panellists to give their thoughts on what does the future of music festivals look like? What needs to be done from here?
Me?
Evelyn, please.
Look, as I said before, I think we're in probably a 5-year transitional cycle of change, but I'm optimistic that we'll see new festivals emerge. But I think in the short term, the operating costs are just so severe. 30, 40, 70% for some touring shows. So I think to sustain the industry, when we talk with government, anything that reduces those operational costs is going to be important. And I think governments, particularly state governments, can do stuff in terms of the venues that they own, the user and policing and medical and all of the services that they provide that they insist that festivals have to provide in order to provide safe experiences. Anything they can today reduce those costs. And that's something practical that they can do. I think the insurance, getting insurance, that's a major issue. It's not just unique to this industry. There is clearly market failure. It's not going away. There has to be some addressing of that at the federal and collectively with the states. Any outdoor event going forward won't get insurance. I think support in terms of audience development and all the issues that have come up today, I think is really, really important. And everybody is dealing with that, as I said before, in real time. I think at the strategic level, though, for Australia and for the Australian music industry and for the festival industry, I think now is the time that we really need to elevate the conversation and lift it out of the weeds of the various parts who have got their views on what should or shouldn't happen. I think the government's established Music Australia. It's a very important investment arm and a strategic for the industry. And I think going forward, certainly what LPA would like to see is that focus now where where the different parts of the industry, which is a very complex industry, is brought together to look at, the 2 or 3 key issues that we're facing, whether it's discoverability, artist career development, sustainability, those issues, and look at what are the game changer initiatives that we should be looking forward to and implementing over the next 5 to 10 years. And I would say that, it's coming up purely from the LPA perspective, where we represent, a whole range of members, large and small, but particularly the larger commercial promoters and so on, and festivals. And I think there needs to be a joined-up conversation and recognition that particularly the commercial sector has a lot to offer and wants to offer a lot more, are already doing a lot. And I think that we really should be having conversations where it's our promoters, our record labels, our streaming services and so on, looking at, what are these challenges we're dealing with and how are we going to collectively work together to solve them. And I don't see that conversation happening yet, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that being kicked into play.
Michael, I'm sorry you have to follow that.
No, I think you touched on it perfectly right at the end. It's I found during COVID was probably the most collaborative time in the music industry. We were all facing the same set amount of challenges. We're in that exact same position now. We're all facing the same set amount of challenges. Obviously we need government support, but in the right avenues and the right ways. I could talk about that for a while, but I won't go on too much about that. But yeah, I think it's that kind of collective and come together. Innovation and being dynamic is driven through scarcity. It's not through abundance. It's not when everything's going well is when we're going to be dynamic and change. It's when we're faced with these problems, and it's collectively as an industry, collectively with the government, we will kind of persevere. And yeah, what does it look like in the next 5 years? I'm optimistic. I have to be. I think there's going to be a consolidation of market, but key festivals, key events, and new audiences flourishing from that. So I'm excited to see that, and also in that new audiences, I'm excited to see the next wave of new events take off.
Linda.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's always been sort of peaks and troughs in festival land. I personally think there'll be an emergence of a lot more single-day festivals as well, but it's letting the audience and the attendee guide you in terms of what is going to make someone pay for a ticket to go to a music festival, whether that is in terms of understanding the types of artists that they want to see or that type of experiential nature of the festival itself. Like, what else is there apart from the music that's going to engage these, existing and emerging audiences as well. So the proof will be in, what the people want, and those that kind of listen to that and adapt will be super successful, I think. But I think it is exciting. I think there'll be some new stuff coming out that we haven't seen before. Looking forward to it.
It's exciting. It's the most exciting industry there is. Last but not least, Kristen.
Really hard to add to all of that industry expertise. And I'm a researcher at the Federal Arts Agency, so I guess when I look to the future, I hope that those collective efforts will be better supported by information. So we're doing a whole lot of research this year. I've already mentioned the Discoverability Project. We're doing another that's assessing the economic contribution of music to GDP, and that's going to be ongoing as well over following years. We're scoping a research project at the moment around the effect of climate change on music festivals with the AFA and Catherine Strong at RMIT and other academics. So that, I guess, is what we hope will be part of the future, is that kind of source of information to guide decision making.
Lovely. To expand upon what Peter Noble said a moment ago, Evelyn was part of a cadre of music industry leaders who visited Canberra and secured a $250 million lifeline for the music industry during peak COVID. Incredible effort. So I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank all of my panellists. Four of the people on this stage have flown to be here. So thank everyone.
And thank you to Lars, our wonderful moderator. I feel like, Evelyn, you hit the nail on the head when you said that this industry is full of creative risk takers, and when we put them on a panel like this and have them give their insights, magic happens. So thank you so much. We're going to take a really short break, and then we're going to be back for the award ceremony.